First contact. The vast emptiness of deep space stretched before the Caldari expedition fleet, stars twinkling in the distance like scattered diamonds on black velvet. Admiral Zevnar stood on the command deck of the Celestial Seeker, his 4 eyes scanning the holographic displays surrounding him. His blue-scaled skin reflected the soft glow of the ship's interior lighting as he contemplated their mission. "We've detected an anomaly," Admiral, reported Science Officer Nistra, her tentacle-like appendages dancing over the control panel. "Approximately 3.2 light minutes from our position. It appears to be a vessel of some kind." Zevnar's secondary eyelids flickered with interest. The Caldari Empire had been expanding its territory for centuries, mapping and claiming new sectors of space. Encountering unknown ships wasn't uncommon, but something in Nistra's tone caught his attention. "Display it," he commanded. The main view screen shifted, revealing a dark silhouette against the backdrop of space. The vessel was unlike anything in the Caldari database, elongated and angular, with what appeared to be weapons systems along its hull. Despite its intimidating appearance, it seemed to be dormant, drifting silently through the void. "Analysis?" Zevnar inquired, leaning forward. "The ship is approximately 1.2 kilometers in length," Nistra responded, her voice betraying a hint of fascination. "Initial scans indicate it's constructed from materials we cannot fully identify. Power readings are minimal, suggesting it's either powered down or operating on emergency systems. Most intriguing is its age. Preliminary dating suggests this vessel is at least 300 standard cycles old." 300 cycles. First Commander Tolvek interjected, his dorsal spines flaring in surprise. No vessel could remain intact for that long without maintenance, especially in deep space. "Precisely why this discovery is significant," Nistra replied. "This ship should not exist in this condition after so much time." Zevnar considered the information. The Caldari Empire prided itself on having the most advanced technology in this sector of the galaxy. Their ships were marvels of engineering, capable of feats most species could only dream of. Yet here was something that defied their understanding. "Any identification markings?" he asked. "There appears to be some form of script along the hull," Nistra said, enhancing the image. "Our linguists are analyzing it now." The magnified view showed strange symbols etched into the dark hull. "UEA's VYJ and it's human," announced linguistics specialist Eshera after a moment of consultation with her database. "This is from Earth, Admiral." A collective murmur spread through the command deck. Humans were known to the Caldari, but only through sporadic encounters and third-hand accounts. They were a relatively young spacefaring species, confined mostly to their home system and a few nearby colonies. They were considered primitive by Caldari standards, capable of basic interstellar travel, but nothing that would suggest they could build something like this. "That's impossible," Tolvek stated firmly. "Human technology is at least 5 evolutionary stages behind our own. They couldn't have built this, especially 3 centuries ago." "Scan it more thoroughly," Zevnar ordered, his interest piqued. "I want to know everything about this vessel." The Celestial Seeker moved closer to the derelict ship, its powerful sensors probing deep into the mysterious craft. As the data began flowing in, Nistra's expressions shifted from curiosity to confusion, and finally to concern. "Admiral, you need to see this," she said, her voice uncharacteristically tense. The holographic display expanded, showing detailed schematics of the human vessel. Its internal structure was far more complex than initially thought, with systems arranged in configurations that made little sense to Caldari engineering principles. "These readings suggest the ship has a power core unlike anything in our database," Nistra explained. "It appears to be dormant now, but if our calculations are correct, it could potentially generate energy equivalent to—" She paused, rechecking her figures. "A small star." "Impossible," Tolvek repeated, but with less conviction. "There's more," Nistra continued. The hull is composed of a material that seems to absorb and redistribute energy. Our scans are actually being partially reflected back at us. And these structures along the sides, they appear to be weapon systems of incredible sophistication. Zevnar remained silent, processing the implications. If humans had possessed this level of technology 3 centuries ago, why weren't they a dominant force in the galaxy by now? Something didn't add up. Could it be from another species? He suggested. Perhaps the humans simply acquired it. The markings and internal design suggest human origin, HFY countered. Everything from the ergonomics of the control systems to the layout of living quarters indicates it was built by and for humans. As they debated, no one noticed the subtle change on the view screen. A faint light had begun to emanate from various points on the human vessel's hull. It wasn't until the ship's alert system chimed that they realized something was happening. "Admiral," the sensor operator called out, "the ship is powering up." Indeed, the once dormant vessel was coming to life. Lights flickered across its surface, and energy readings began to spike dramatically. What had seemed like weapon emplacements were now glowing with an ominous blue light. "Did we trigger something?" Zevnar demanded. "Possibly," Nistra admitted. "Our scans may have activated some kind of automated defense system." "Raise shields. Move us to a safe distance," Zevnar commanded. "Continue monitoring, but do not scan any further." The celestial seeker began to back away, but the human ship was now fully awakening. Its systems activated one by one, like a predator stretching after a long sleep. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission," Communications Officer Velpor announced, sounding surprised. "It's coming from the human ship." "That's not possible," Tolvek insisted. "There can't be anyone alive on that vessel after all this time." "Put it through," Zevnar ordered. The command deck speakers crackled to life, emitting a series of tones followed by a synthetic voice speaking in an unfamiliar language. "It's cycling through communication protocols," HFY explained. "It's trying to establish contact." After several iterations, the voice switched to passable Keldari. "Unidentified vessels. You have entered restricted space and initiated scanning protocols against a United Earth ship. Identify yourselves immediately." Zevnar stepped forward. "This is Admiral Zevnar of the Keldari Empire Expedition Fleet. We mean no harm. We discovered your vessel and were merely investigating." There was a pause before the response came. "Scan detected. Defensive protocols initiated. Stand by for verification." Before anyone could react, a pulse of energy erupted from the human ship, washing over the celestial seeker and its escort vessels. It wasn't a weapon strike, but rather some form of scanning beam, far more powerful than anything the Keldari possessed. "They're scanning us," Tolvek asked incredulously. "Their technology shouldn't allow for that." The pulse receded, and the human ship seemed to process what it had learned. After an agonizing moment, it spoke again. "Keldari biosignatures confirmed. Your actions have been cataloged as potentially hostile. Warning: this vessel serves as a boundary marker for human territory. Further incursion will be met with appropriate defensive measures." "Boundary marker," Zevnar repeated, confusion evident in his voice. "This is unclaimed space, far from any human settlement." "Negative," the ship responded. "This sector falls within the protection zone established by the Treaty of Proxima. Your presence here violates Article 3 of said treaty." The command crew exchanged bewildered glances. There was no such treaty in any Keldari database. "We have no record of this treaty," Zevnar stated carefully. "Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding. Our records show humans are primarily confined to their home system and a few nearby colonies." The human ship went silent for a moment, as if contemplating this information. When it spoke again, its tone had changed subtly. "Update required. Initiating full defensive protocols. Warning: you have 30 seconds to withdraw from this sector." The energy readings from the human vessel suddenly spiked dramatically, its weapon systems charging to levels that dwarf the Caldari fleet's combined firepower. "Admiral," Nistra said urgently, "if those readings are accurate, that ship could destroy our entire fleet with minimal effort." Zevanar's mind raced. Everything they knew about humans suggested they were technologically inferior, yet this ancient vessel was threatening them with ease. Something was very wrong with their understanding of this species. "Prepare to withdraw," he ordered, his pride giving way to pragmatism. "All ships, minimum safe distance." As the Caldari fleet began to retreat, a new sensor alert sounded. "Multiple spatial distortions detected," the sensor operator announced. "Something's coming." Space itself seemed to fold inward at several points around them, reality distorting in ways that defied Caldari physics. From these distortions emerged ships, human ships, of various sizes and configurations, all bearing design similarities to the derelict vessel, but clearly more advanced. Within moments, the Caldari expedition fleet found itself surrounded by a human battle group that had appeared out of nowhere, using technology that should have been impossible. The largest of the new arrivals transmitted directly to the Celestial Seeker. "This is Admiral Helena Chen of the United Earth Navy. You've stumbled upon something you weren't meant to find. Admiral Zevanar. Now we have some explaining to do, both of us." Zevanar stared at the view screen, at the face of the human admiral, so alien yet somehow intimidating despite her species' apparent fragility. In that moment, he realized that everything the Caldari Empire thought it knew about humans was wrong. Catastrophically wrong. And now they were about to discover just how wrong they had been. The reckoning. Admiral Zevanar stood rigid on the command deck of the Celestial Seeker, acutely aware that his expedition fleet was now completely surrounded by human warships that had appeared from nowhere. The technology to create such spatial distortions was theoretical at best in Caldari science, yet these humans had wielded it with casual efficiency. "Admiral Chen," Zevanar acknowledged, forcing confidence into his voice, "I assure you, we had no intention of trespassing. Our charts show this as unclaimed space. If we violated some boundary, it was entirely unintentional." The human admiral's expression remained neutral on the view screen. She was small by Caldari standards, with dark hair pulled back severely from her face and eyes that seemed to calculate constantly. "Your intentions are less concerning than your actions, Admiral," Chen replied. "You scanned a Sentinel vessel with maximum penetration. That's not something we take lightly." Sentinel vessel. The term registered immediately with Zevanar. Not a derelict or abandoned ship, but a purposefully placed marker. A tripwire. "We believed it to be an abandoned craft," he explained. "Our mission is exploration and cataloging. When we detected the vessel, standard procedure dictated investigation." Chen studied him for a moment before responding. "I understand standard procedure, Admiral. But surely even Caldari protocols suggest caution when encountering unknown technology." First Commander Tolvek stepped forward, his military training overriding his astonishment. "With respect, Admiral Chen, human technological capabilities have been thoroughly assessed by Caldari intelligence. Your species shouldn't possess technology of this caliber. This," he gestured to the surrounding fleet, "shouldn't be possible." A small smile flickered across Chen's face. "And yet here we are." She turned slightly, issuing commands to someone off-screen before returning her attention to the Caldari. "Admiral Zevanar, I'm transmitting coordinates. I invite you, and only you, to join me aboard my flagship, the Thermopylae. We have matters to discuss that would benefit from a face-to-face conversation." The transmission ended before Zevanar could respond, replaced by coordinate data for a rendezvous point. "Admiral, you can't seriously be considering this," Tolvek protested. "It could be a trap. If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done so already." Zevanar replied grimly, "Whatever these humans are, they're not what our records indicate. I need to understand what we're dealing with." Against the vehement objections of his command staff, Zevnar boarded a shuttle and approached the human flagship. The Thermopylae was massive, significantly larger than the ancient Sentinel vessel that had started this encounter. Its design was elegant yet intimidating, with none of the utilitarian aesthetics the Caldari associated with human engineering. As his shuttle was guided into a docking bay, Zevnar witnessed firsthand the sophistication of human technology. The interior of the ship was a marvel of engineering. Clean lines, advanced materials, and technology that hummed with barely restrained power. Admiral Chen greeted him personally, flanked by two officers in formal uniforms. Up close, she was even smaller than she'd appeared on the view screen, yet Zevnar felt an unmistakable aura of authority around her. "Welcome aboard the Thermopylae, Admiral Zevnar," she said, offering a gesture that approximated a Caldari greeting with surprising accuracy. "I appreciate your willingness to come alone." "Your invitation was difficult to refuse," Zevnar replied dryly. "I find myself with many questions, Admiral Chen." "As do I," she acknowledged, gesturing down a corridor. "Please, join me in the conference room. I believe we have much to discuss." The room she led him to was spacious, dominated by a table of polished material that Zevnar couldn't identify. Through the viewport, he could see both fleets maintaining their positions in space, his own vessels looking suddenly primitive compared to the human ships. 300 cycles ago, Chen began without preamble. Humanity was involved in a conflict that nearly destroyed us. We were attacked by a species that believed our kind was too dangerous to allow into the greater galactic community. She activated a display, showing images of devastated Earth cities, orbital installations in ruins, and battles of unimaginable ferocity. "We were outnumbered and outgunned," she continued. "But humans have always excelled when our backs are against the wall. Necessity drove innovation at an exponential rate. Within a decade, we had not only matched our enemy's technology, but surpassed it." The images shifted to show increasingly advanced human ships and weapons. When the war ended, humanity faced a choice. We could announce our presence to the galaxy, showcase our new capabilities, and take our place as a major power. Or, you could hide, Zevnar concluded, the pieces falling into place. Make the galaxy believe humans were less advanced than you actually were. Chen nodded, approval in her eyes. "Precisely. We created a facade, a carefully constructed image of a fledgling spacefaring species still finding its way among the stars. Meanwhile, we expanded in secret, placing sentinel vessels like the one you encountered at the boundaries of our true territory." "But why?" Zevnar asked, genuinely perplexed. "With technology like this, you could have established yourselves as a dominant force in the galaxy, and immediately become a target for every other power," Chen countered. "We learned from our near extinction that revealing too much, too soon, is dangerous. The galaxy is full of species that fear what they don't understand. And humans, Admiral, are very difficult to understand." She touched another control, and the display showed the true extent of human territory, vastly larger than anything recorded in Caldari databases. "We've been watching the Caldari Empire for some time," Chen admitted. "Your expansion has been impressive, if somewhat aggressive. We've redirected your exploration vessels on several occasions without your knowledge, keeping you away from our core territories." Zevnar felt a chill at this revelation. The Caldari prided themselves on their military might and technological superiority. The idea that humans had been manipulating their movements without detection was deeply unsettling. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice steadied despite his internal turmoil. "Now that we know." "That depends on what you do with this knowledge," Chen replied. "Our policy of obscurity has served us well, but it was never meant to be permanent. Eventually, humanity will step fully onto the galactic stage, but on our terms, not because we were discovered prematurely." She leaned forward, her expression intensifying. "I'm authorized to offer the Caldari Empire a unique opportunity, a limited technological exchange, and formal diplomatic relations with the true human government, not the facade we present to most species. In return, you keep our secret. And if we decline? Chen's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Then we would ensure your fleet never returns to Caldari space, and any record of this encounter would be thoroughly erased. We've done it before. The implied threat was clear, yet delivered with such calm certainty that Zevnar had no doubt of its authenticity. The humans could indeed do exactly as she claimed. I believe an arrangement could be beneficial to both our species, Zevnar said carefully. But I must understand what we're dealing with. How advanced are you, truly? For answer, Chen simply gestured to a previously unnoticed human standing in the corner of the room. The officer stepped forward and activated a small device on his wrist. Instantly, he vanished, only to reappear on the other side of the room. Personal teleportation is something we perfected about 50 years ago, Chen explained casually. The spatial folding technology that brought our fleet here. That's considerably older technology, and these are just technologies we're comfortable demonstrating. Zevinar's mind reeled at the implications. If these were technologies humans were willing to show, what capabilities were they still keeping hidden? The Caldari have always believed themselves to be approaching the pinnacle of technological evolution. Chen continued. Most species do. But the truth, Admiral, is that there are horizons beyond what you've imagined. Humanity has glimpsed them, and what we've seen has made us cautious about who we share that knowledge with. Why tell me this now? Zevnar asked. Why not simply eliminate my fleet and maintain your secrecy? Chen's expression softened slightly. Because endless deception is exhausting, Admiral. Because we've watched your species and despite your imperial tendencies, we believe there's potential for genuine alliance. And because, eventually, there will come threats that even humanity cannot face alone. She stood, signaling the end of their discussion. You have a decision to make, Admiral Zevnar. Return to your ship. Consult with your leadership if you must. But understand this. The galaxy is about to change, regardless of what you choose. The question is whether the Caldari Empire changes with it, or becomes irrelevant in what follows. As Zevnar prepared to depart, Chen offered one final thought. Your scientists were correct about one thing, Admiral. The UEA's Vigilant is indeed 300 years old. What they failed to consider is just how far humanity has advanced since then. Back aboard the Celestial Seeker, Zevnar gazed at the human fleet through the viewport of his command deck. In the span of a few hours, his understanding of the galaxy and his empire's place in it had been fundamentally altered. Your orders, Admiral. Tolvek asked, tension evident in his voice. Zevnar turned to his crew, seeing the mixture of fear and confusion on their faces. They had all witnessed power beyond their comprehension, forces that rendered their own impressive technology almost primitive by comparison. Send a priority message to the Imperial Command, he said finally. Tell them we've made first contact with the actual human civilization, and that everything we thought we knew was wrong. Tell them. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Tell them we've been given a glimpse of the future, and we need to decide if we want to be part of it. As the message was prepared, Zevnar watched the ancient human sentinel vessel, the UEA's Vigilant, power down once more, returning to its dormant state. It would continue its silent vigil at the edge of human space, waiting for the next unwary travelers to stumble upon it. And when they did, they too would learn what the Caldari now knew. In the vastness of space, appearances were deceiving, and humanity was the most deceptive of all.